students, welcome back to the class once again. So today we are going to continue with the same chapter. In the previous class we discussed the political causes of the revolt of 1857, and those who missed that class or those who did not watch the previous video, the link to that previous video is given in the description. Please go through it so that you can continue with the chapter. So today we are going to discuss about the another causes of the revolt of 1857. So in short, let me tell you what I taught in the previous class. In the previous class, I discussed about the political causes of the revolt of 1857, in which I discussed the doctrine of lapse, mistreatment meted out to Nana Sahib, disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah Zafar, and Awadh was annexed on the pretext of misgovernment. These were the topics which we discussed in the political causes. So now we'll continue with the another cause. So the next cause we are going to discuss about is the religious causes, social and religious causes. First we'll discuss about the religious causes, and then we'll discuss about the social causes too. So here in this topic, religious causes. So how did the religious cause became responsible for the revolt of 1857? So here in this topic, I'll make it very precise to make you understand what were the reasons for which the revolt broke out in 1857. So first of all, conversion to Christianity. So what it is? With the coming of the English in our country, Christian missionaries also flocked in our country, and their main motive was to convert the Indians to Christianity. And they even got the support of the British administration. So when they came to India, they possibly took all measures to abuse the religions of the Indians, even the Hindu religion, the Islam religion. All the religions are abused openly, and there was no one to protect the religion of the Indians. So they already had been given the permission from the British government to convert the Indians to Christianity as much as possible. So they tried every possible means to convert the Indians to Christianity. So conversion to Christianity. Now they openly criticized, they openly abused the religion of the Hindus and the Muslims. And the Hindus and Muslims, they started feeling insecure regarding their religion. They thought that their religion is in danger. So not only that, the Christian missionaries, they came up with a number of acts which we'll discuss later on. So this way, the Christians, they tried their best way to convince, or we can say that indirectly convert the Indians to Christianity. So like from the very beginning, the British made Bible teaching compulsory. British made Bible teaching compulsory, that is mandatory in government offices and educational institutions. British also ordered civil and military officials to preach gospels. That was made compulsory. So, in many of the cantonments and even in prisons, the missionaries preached openly. They ridiculed other religion. They openly preached and ridiculed other religion. Even they shouted in front of Christian missionaries, shouted in front of the people, abusing their religion, hurting the religious sentiments of the Hindus and the Muslims. So this way, the people of India became very much insecure regarding their religion. So the spread of Christianity was done with such fervor that it created a sense of alarm. It created a sense of alarm and the panic among the people. The people were very much now insecure, and there was a lot of panic among the Indians that their religion now is in danger. There was a slogan among the Hindu community, even in the Muslim community, that their religion is in danger. But there was no one to protect their religion, because these Christian missionaries, they had been given full support. They had been given full support by the British government. So, Christianity was spread gradually, and many were forcefully converted, and many under severe pressure, like a number of laws were passed, and they had no other option left out rather than to convert themselves to Christianity. So I'm not going against any religion. I'm just teaching you about how the Christian missionaries they came to India, and they tried to convert the Indians to Christians. So it is not against any religion. So let me clear it once again. I'm not against any religion. So the way the Christian missionaries started preaching, abusing the religion of the Indians, the Hindus were hurt, Hindu sentiments were hurt, the Muslim sentiments were hurt, and they felt very, very insecure, and they were very much frustrated, and they were very much dissatisfied with the working of the Christian missionaries, abusing their religion and forcefully converting the Hindus and the Muslims to Christians. And next one, another laws related to women. Laws were passed related to women, though it was good in a positive context, like sati system, which was an age-long tradition which was followed in our country, was completely banned, and it was made a punishable offense in the year 1829. In 1829, sati was completely banned. What was sati? During the old times, the women, after the death of their husband, they used to burn themselves on the same fire, and that became a tradition, and it was followed in our country from generation to generation. Though it was an evil practice. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy, with the help of Lord William Bentinck, proposed a bill, and the act was passed, making sati a punishable offense in the year 1829. But this was taken by the Indian Orthodox people as a complete interference in the religion of their life. It was an interference, they thought it. The Orthodox people, they could not tolerate the interference by the British government in their religious life. So this also became one of the main factor which hurt the sentiments of the Orthodox people in our country. Though it was in a positive context, the motive was to free the society from the evil practices, but our Orthodox people in the society, they could not tolerate this interference. Okay, so sati pratha was banned in the year 1829. It was passed. It was made a punishable offense. Then the another one was Widow Remarriage Act. Widow Remarriage Act was passed in the year 1856. Widow remarriage. In our tradition, long time back in our country, when you go back before the coming of Britishers in our country, during the Sultanate period, Mughal period, before that, child marriages were there. And even we at a very early age, at a very tender age, the girls, the married girls, we can say, they used to get a widow. That means the husband died due to some natural circumstances and all, and they had to lead a long life without a husband, without the support of any family members. So it is very logical that girls, they can stay in their parents' house up to certain time. After that, the parents will also leave them, or they can say that after the death of the parents, what will the girl do? But there was no one to help them, there was no one to support them. So in order to allow the girls, in order to allow the widows to remarry again, the act was passed. Actually, according to the Hindu custom, widows were not allowed to marry. Widows were not at all allowed to marry. They had to lead a black and white life. No color in their life. So that was very, very tough. It was very tough for young girls who were married at a very tender age, and now they had to live a widowed life throughout their life. Life of a widow is very, very difficult. Okay, so in order to allow the widows to remarry again, the act was passed which came to be known as widow remarriage. That means the widows can remarry again, and it was legally allowed through the act of 1856. The act was passed. So all these changes were brought with the help of our social reformers. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was there. He was a pioneer of we can say modern India. He wanted to bring reformation within society. So with the help of Lord William Bentinck, the Governor General of that time, he tried to bring this type of changes through number of acts. Though Raja Ram Mohan Roy had to face a lot of opposition from the orthodox people, but still the act was implemented. Okay, but the bringing of this type of act hurt the religious sentiments of the people, hurt the social. They thought that they are interfering in their religious life. They are trying to change their tradition. They are trying to forcefully enter into the culture of the Indian people. So, Widow Remarriage Act also hurt the religious sentiments of the people. So, religious sentiment in the sense that all these things were somehow related with the religion of the Indian people. Okay, so sati was made a punishable offence. Widow Remarriage Act was passed in 1856. So all these were brought, and that became the religious cause for the revolt of 1857. Now the third one you can see here, that is a C, Hindu law of property, 1850. In 1850, they passed a new bill which became an act in the year 1850 that in order to inherit the ancestral property, you need to convert yourself to Christianity. Suppose your parents had left lots and lots of property, so you need to inherit them, because after father, son will become the legal owner. But in order to inherit the ancestral property, you have to convert yourself to Christianity. That was the act. The act made it compulsory and mandatory that if you want to inherit the property of your ancestors, you have to convert yourself to Christianity. So obviously, if there are two brothers in the family, then definitely there will be a doubt, there will be a confusion. So if I become rigid and stuck to my own religion, then another brother may convert himself to Christianity and he will inherit the entire property. So that type of confusion was there, that type of problems erupted in the Hindu family to inherit the property of the ancestors. So there was only one way. So if you want to inherit the property of your ancestors, you have to convert yourself to Christianity. So why they did it? What was the main motive of doing so? The main motive of the Christian missionaries and the British government was to convert the maximum people to Christianity. So they tried with different ways to convert the Indian masses to Christianity, and they became successful to large extent. Okay, so Hindu law of property was passed in the year 1850. Once again, religious causes, conversion to Christianity. With the coming of Britishers in our country, Christian missionaries came out in our country, and they started to preach Christianity. Okay, they started to abuse the religion of the people. So left with no option. The Indians were left with no option. I'm not talking about entire people, but many of the people, they were left with no option, so they converted themselves to Christianity. And sati was banned in 1829. Widow Remarriage Act was passed in 1856. So all this became one of the important cause under the heading religious cause for the revolt of 1857, because Indians were very much frustrated. We can say that there was a panic among the people. That is why this also became one of the most important cause for the revolt of 1857. That means the act which were passed, they felt that the act which were passed, like sati pratha was banned, widow remarriage act was passed, okay, they felt that this act was threat to their religion. These acts were threat to their religion. Though I don't agree with this too, this was it was a positive step taken by the British government to free the society from the evil practices, but on the other side, the Indian people, they took it as a threat to their religion. So the next one is social causes, which comes on which will be taken together, religious and social causes, or social religious causes. So in the social causes, introduction of railways and telegraph. So the Britishers, when they came to our country, their main motive was to expand the territories in our country, and they wanted to connect to the interior part of the country, and they even wanted to make a communication system stronger in order to reach out to the interior part of the country, where they can supply their finished goods brought from England, and they can send troops wherever required urgently. So for that, railways were introduced in our country. So with the beginning of railways in our country, Indians started to feel insecure again regarding their religion, regarding their caste system and all. So development of railways increased the communication system, and it reduced the travel time also. That is very much obvious. It reduced the travel time of the Indians, and another attempt, the Indians saw that this is another attempt by the British to disrupt their rigid caste system. They thought that they are trying to disrupt the rigid caste system which they were following from generation to generation. As you know that the caste system is very, very rigid. Even though today we don't believe in caste system, but even people follow the caste system very, very rigidly. Even in politics and all, everywhere you see caste plays a very, very important role. Now, they thought that the Britishers are trying to disrupt the caste system of the Indians. So how it is so? Because in a railway, when you will travel from one place to another, you will be traveling in the same compartment, where the people belonging to high caste and people belonging to say lower caste also can travel together. So that they thought that making it, they are trying to forcefully disrupt our caste system by introducing railways, making the people to travel in the same compartment. So mostly the high caste people, like the Brahmins, they thought that, they took it as very much, they took it in a very different way, that the arrangements were very much appealing to the higher caste, mostly the Brahmins, who thought that, what they thought? They thought that Britishers were trying to defile their caste system. The Brahmins, they thought that the Britishers were trying to defile their caste system, and they wanted to ruin the existing system, existing social order that had been followed since time immemorial. They had been following since a long time the caste system, that the lower caste cannot sit with the higher caste, they cannot dine together, inter-caste marriages were not allowed. So there was a lot of among the different castes which prevailed in our country. Like 4 castes were there, like Brahmins. Then next we had Kshatriyas were there. Then third one was Vaishyas, they were the businessmen, merchants and all. And the third one was the Sudras, who served the upper 3 classes. Though they served the upper 3 classes, but they were taken as downtrodden classes. They were not allowed to dine together, they were not allowed to enter the temples, they were not allowed to sit together, they were not allowed to drink and use the water of the same well. This type of caste, this type of system was there in our country in the ancient time. And the Britishers, when they introduced railways in our country, the Brahmins, they thought that they are trying to disrupt their tradition. They are trying to defile their aged-old tradition which they have been following. The caste system will be broken. How can I sit with the lower caste people in the same compartment? So, though they did not do so, the main motive of the Britishers were not to break the caste system and all. It was their thinking. It was the thinking of the Indians that they thought that they are trying to defile their caste system. The next one, telegraph. Telegraph again, the means of communication. They erected telegraph poles and all just to communicate. But the Indians thought that why this telegraph poles are erected? They thought that the poles have been erected to hang people. The poles had been erected to hang people who were against the British rule. This type of, let us say it was a miscommunication or misunderstanding, and people thought that telegraph lines are erected so that if we go against the Britishers, they will hang us. Even there was even the people believed that if we don't convert ourselves to Christianity, they will throw us in front of the running train. That was also their belief. So these were the causes. We can say that this also hurt the people of our country, that the Britishers are trying to break their caste system. Britishers are trying to use different means to convert the people to Christianity. If we go against the British rule, they will throw us in front of the running train. They may hang us if we don't listen to them. If we defile them, they will hang us. So that was their belief, that the people thought, and they were very much dissatisfied, and they thought that the Britishers are entering in each and every life of their every life of the people, religious life, social life, and all. Okay, the next one is Western education. Western education. So you know that Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was a pioneer of modern education in our country. In order to bring changes, in order to make the people understand the existence of British rule in our country, we need to bring reformation within our society. We need to reform our society so the people of our country will understand the true nature of British administration in our country. So until and unless if they don't free themselves from the orthodox life, the social evils, they cannot understand. We cannot unite together. We cannot go against the Britishers. So for that, he tried his best to introduce Western education, to study English education, to study the minds of the British, how they think, what is their opinion, so that we can even communicate with them through the medium of English. So for that, he wanted English education to be introduced in our country. And with the introduction of Western education in our country, our age-old education system, where the children were sent to gurukuls and all, where they studied. After completing their education, they returned back home. Okay, they were taught all the subjects. Mathematics was taught to them, Sanskrit was taught to them, grammar was taught to them in the old educational system, oriental form of education which was there in our country. Okay, and with the starting of, when the Western education was started in the country, the people believed and they thought that the age-old traditional system of education will now disappear from our country. People will forget it, and the people who depended upon those education system, now they will also become jobless. So they thought that now no one will come to listen to them, no one is going to come to them to study. So this Western education also brought a lot of havoc in the life of the people, making the people think that the traditional education system will slowly disappear from our country. So this is what I can make you understand that Western education, though it was good for our country, but many people took a long time to understand the importance. But initially, when this was introduced in our country, Western education means English education. English schools were opened up in our country, imparting English education in our country. So it was very, very difficult to shift the people from the Oriental education, the age-old education system, to a new set of education system, that is Western education. So they became frustrated, they were not at all happy, they were completely discontented, and they thought that they are going to destroy everything, every cultural thing which they have been following in our country. So this is what about the social causes. So like a Sati Pratha was banned, a Widow Remarriage Act was passed. All this also comes under the social causes. When they were not happy. They thought they're entering into their social life. The Orthodox people were not ready to accept that they are entering in their social life of the people. So this became the causes for the revolt of 1857. Now next one, the next topic which we'll discuss over here is economic causes. So the next one is economic causes. Economic causes. Number one, economic exploitation. Number two, destruction of Indian industries and handicrafts, impoverishment of the peasants. So these are the topics which comes under economic causes. Now let me tell you, the Britishers or let us say the East India Company, their main motive to come to India was to trade and maximize their profit. So initially when they came, they set up their factories and they brought, purchased goods from India, like you know that textiles was very popular in the world market. India is famous for textile even today. Textile, spices were grown maximum in our country. Even we call India the spice country. So they bought from India, they took it to abroad and sold it over there, and they earned high profit. They purchased at a low price and they sold it at a very high price. So that was the system. Now, when they came as a trader, slowly and gradually, they started to exploit our country through different means. So, large-scale economic exploitation started in our country. Okay, they bought Indian textiles. Number one, they bought indigo. Indigo is a dyeing agent, blue in color. Okay, which helps in the industries to color the cotton, white cottons, spice and food grains. They bought it from India and they sold all those in abroad at very high prices. Since India was very popular for textiles, the company prohibited. Now you can see the East India Company prohibited. The sale of Indian textiles like silk and muslin and calico in England. All these were banned. That means all the restrictions are imposed over the selling of textiles, silk and calico in England. Okay, they imposed heavy taxes. On the import, heavy taxes on the Indian textiles. Indian textiles, when they were taken to abroad or foreign countries, taxes were imposed very high. So automatically the prices of those textiles will go high, and that will that hampered the business of the Indian communities. So they suffered a lot, the heavy taxes. Whereas with the start of industrial revolution in England, English industries needed raw materials, and they got all those raw materials from India. Before they used to buy textiles and sell it over there, but after the industrial revolution, what they did was that they started taking raw materials from India. They took raw materials to England, converted into a finished good in the factories, brought the same thing and sold in the Indian market. So India served two purposes for the Britishers. What were the two purposes? India provided raw materials, and India became the market for the finished goods which were brought by the Britishers in our country. So they used to take raw materials from our country at a cheaper rate, and that due to that the Indian textiles, they lost their business. We can say the people lost their business, they became unemployed. And the same like cotton was purchased and taken to England, fed Indian industries, it was made into a finished good. Again the same thing was brought into the Indian market and they sold it. So India served as a market for the British goods. So this way what happened? Our Indians, those who were in the business of textiles, they lost their job. Okay, the traders, the merchants, they lost their jobs. Okay, now apart from that, destruction of Indian industries. As I told you, with the coming of Britishers, slowly and gradually they lost. That means the Indian industries, they started to get destroyed because they could not face the competition with the machine-made goods. They could not face the competition with the machine-made goods, which are very of a good quality and were cheaper in price. Whereas Indian industries goods made with hand and all, okay, it was very costly. That is why they could not face the tough competition given by the English-made goods in our country. So, on the other hand, the taxes which were imposed on the duties of Indian textiles, okay, made the textile industries weak. The textile industry in India started becoming weak. Automatically, when the taxes are imposed, the prices of goods will go high. So, when the goods go high, let me explain you. Indian textile was very popular. when it was taken to foreign markets, England, the taxes were imposed over it, the prices automatically went high. Okay, whereas the British made goods which they came in our market was without taxes, so definitely the prices will be low, so they could not face the competition provided by the Britishers in our country. They could not compete in the foreign market. Okay, and not only that, as I told you earlier, with the start of industrial revolution, companies began to purchase raw materials, raw cotton from our country at a very cheap price. Even jute was purchased at a very cheap price and were taken to Britain. And these raw materials, what was done? These raw materials were manufactured into a finished goods and sold in India at a very high price. Sold in India again at a very high price. They purchased raw materials at a very low price. They took it to England, made into a finished goods, brought it to India, sold it at a very high price. So this way, what happened? This way, our traders lost their job. The merchants, they lost their job. So the Indian industries started to decline. We can say that the Indian industries were completely destroyed by the policy followed by the British government to promote their sale in our country. Now, with that, India became the producer of raw material only for the Britishers. India now became a producer of raw materials, okay, which discouraged the handicrafts of our country. Handicrafts of our country also was completely destroyed. Okay, now their goods were not demanded because their goods were of very high price, whereas the goods brought from England, they sold it at a very reasonable price. Though it was very high, but still that as compared to the Indian goods, they got the market. Okay, now we can say that due to all this, the Indian industrialists as well as the handicrafts, they all were completely destroyed, and the people who were involved in this, they became unemployed. The people who were involved in this, they were completely unemployed. Okay, they lost their job. So the loss of job created, now coming to the point, the loss of job created frustrations and discontent among the people. They were frustrated. Who was responsible for the suffering? Who brought suffering in their life? The British government. So what to do now? They were frustrated. They lost their job. They became unemployed. So definitely this also became one of the cause for the revolt of 1857. Now, impoverishment of the peasants. Who all are the peasants? There is a difference between a farmer and a peasant. Mostly the students are confused. The peasants, they take it as a farmer, farmer as a peasant. No. Farmers are the one who have their own land. Who have their own land and they work on it, or they ask some other laborers to work on it or cultivate it in their farms. Whereas peasants, they don't have a land of their own, they work on somebody else's land. They grow crops, they cultivate, and they get their share or they get their wages. So the peasants mostly in our country, from the very beginning, even today, they are the sufferers, they are the worst sufferers. So what happened, you can see here, impoverishment of the peasants. Due to the money lenders, let me tell you, the impoverishment of peasants was very much inevitable due to the acts of the money lenders. So mostly we can say that they borrowed money from the money lenders. They could not pay the money back on time. So result was that it went on increasing. The burden of loan went on increasing over them. Okay, and due to that, the condition of the peasants became worse and worse. They became poor and poor. Okay, so this way, impoverishment of the peasants was also one of the most important factor for the revolt of 1857. So the company's main interest, let me tell you what was the main interest of the company. The main interest of the company was to acquire maximum revenue from the people. So they collected more and more revenue from the people, and when these people could not pay the revenue, they borrowed from the money lender. So they went on borrowing money from the money lender. It went on increasing. We can say the loans went on increasing, And on the other hand, who suffered ultimately? The peasants' life became very, very miserable. Okay, the condition became pathetic, and they suffered a lot. Okay, now you can see, let me tell you that most of the peasants, they suffered a lot. The permanent settlement, which was introduced in 1793, you might have heard about it, was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. Okay, 1793 made the zamindars absolute honor of the land. Zamindars were made the absolute honors of the land, and these zamindars began to oppress the peasants for their that means they oppressed the peasants for non-payment of taxes. Zamindars were the middle one, they were made the honor of the land. Now these zamindars will collect revenue from the peasants. The peasants will be given the land, they will work on it, they definitely have to pay the high amount of revenue collected by the zamindars. Okay, and this made their life more and more miserable. There was no reduction or waiving of revenue in case of drought or famine. Whenever there was famine and drought, these revenues were not at all waived. Okay, and then in 1833, many of the Englishmen settled in our country. Okay, and they became the land owner. They purchased land. They became the land owner. Okay, this Englishman forced the cultivators only to grow indigo, because indigo was highly demanded in England because of an industrial revolution. So the indigo cultivators were treated in an inhuman manner. Their agricultural crops were destroyed, houses were burned. Why they were burned? Because when they refused to grow indigo, they were forcefully beaten. Their houses were burned, their cattle were burned. Okay, and even they disgraced the women of the farmers and the peasants. So this way, lot of atrocities are committed on the Indian peasants as well as the people of our country, which was beyond their capacity to bear those troubles. So definitely, what will happen? Gradually, all this were piling up in their hearts and mind, and that became one of the major cause for the revolt of 1857. And many of the lands were even confiscated by the money lenders and zamindars when the farmers or the peasants, they failed to pay the revenue on time. Many of the lands were confiscated by them. Okay. Now let me tell you that India now became an agricultural colony because industries were destroyed, handicrafts, they lost their job. Now most of the people who were involved in industries, small scale industries, textile industries and all, handicrafts and all, they lost their job, they became unemployed. Now they shifted themselves to work in the farms. They shifted themselves to work in agricultural farms. So what happened? Due to that, their life became more and more pathetic and miserable. So let me tell you, with the destruction of industries, millions of artisans, craftsmen, spinners, weavers, potters and tanners, they migrated from towns, from the industrial areas to the villages and made agriculture their source of livelihood. So India now became an agricultural colony of the Britishers, who will be producing raw materials for their benefit. Hope you are understanding what I am trying to teach. And then the next one more. I'll continue over here. Okay, let me tell you. In 1837 and 1838. In 1837 and 1838. Okay, there was a terrible famine. Okay, there was a terrible famine, and due to famine there was a lot of crisis in the country. So the condition of the people became more and more miserable. The people who were already landless, the people who were already jobless, people who were completely frustrated, their life became more and more miserable. Okay, now what to do in order to save their life? People started, those who had land of their own, they started to sell their land, they started to sell their cattle, and in some cases their children, they sold their land, they sold their cattle in order to buy food for their children. Nobody can see their children starving. So the British government, instead of helping these people, they should have provided help during the time of famine, but they did not do any, they did not bring any relief for the people. So instead of helping them, they went on increasing the taxes. Okay, I don't have money to pay, but still they want the taxes. So this angered the people in general. Those who had no food to eat, they were asked to pay the taxes. So they suffered a lot in the hands of the British. So many causes are there, still we have to continue. So economically, India was made an agricultural economy where the farmers were forced to grow indigo. When they refused, their houses were burned, their cattle were burned. Okay, and moreover, taxes on the farmers were increased day by day. Zamindars exploited, moneylenders also exploited, and ultimately who suffered? The poor peasants, they suffered. The poor farmers, they suffered. The farmers, they have their own land, but due to their condition, they started selling their lands to feed their children. So this was the condition which became more and more worst by the English in our country. The next topic will be the military cause. So the next one is the military causes. So this is one of the most important cause we can take it, that was responsible for the revolt of 1857. Now let us try to understand these military causes one by one. Now you know that the British army was composed of Indian soldiers also. Indian sepoys were also there. Now these Indian sepoys were paid very low salaries. They were capable and able like European soldiers, though they were paid very low salaries. They were paid very, very low salaries. So definitely this will also bring frustration in the life of the soldiers. They are working day and night to suppress the revolt. Wherever revolts broke out, the Indian sepoys were sent to suppress them. And these Indians, showing their loyalty to the Britishers, they followed the orders. They suppressed the revolt in India. Though in spite of giving 100%, they were not paid properly. Their salaries were very, very low. They were paid very low salaries. They were paid very, very low salaries. As compared to European counterparts, their salaries were very, very low. Now next one is a very poor prospect of promotion. The Indian soldiers could hardly reach up to the post of Subedar, sepoys, and they could hardly reach up to the post of a Subedar. Okay, and all the high posts were reserved for the Europeans. English generals were there. All the high posts were reserved for the Europeans. Okay, and the Indians hardly could reach up to the post of a Subedar. So there was no proper prospect of promotion. If you work, if you show your ability, you need to be promoted, but that was not there. So they were poor. That means poor prospect of promotion. Promotion was very, very at a low grade. They could hardly reach up to the post of a Subedar. Now, next one, let me tell you, all the high ranks were reserved for the Europeans. All the high posts were reserved for the British. Okay, and we can say that they were paid 8 times more than the Indians. They were paid, the British generals or British sepoys, army, they were soldiers, they were paid 8 times greater than the Indian soldiers. Okay, so not only that, the sepoys, okay, had to pay for his uniform. Sepoys had to pay for his uniform and bought daily ration on credit from the army bazaar. They had to pay for their uniform. They had to bring ration from the army bazaar, and all those all those were deducted from their salary. All these were deducted from their salary. Leaving the sepoy with practically nothing. They were left with nothing. So they worked day and night for them, but nothing was free for them. They had to purchase, though credit were provided to them, but when they were given salary, all were deducted from it. That was the condition of the Indian sepoys. Okay. Now the third one is religious sentiments. You know that British army consisted of Punjabis, Sikhs were there, and mostly they keep beards and all. So those who kept beards, they were asked to shave their beard. They were asked to have a clean shave. They were asked to have a clean shave. As per their religion, they were not allowed to cut or trim their beard. Okay, but this way, religious sentiments of the people, of the soldiers, were also heard. They were not allowed to use any sectarian mark like turban and all, or like tika and all. Okay, so all these were not at all allowed, and they were even asked to have a clean shave, to cut their beards, which were completely against their religion. Okay, and even there was a popular belief among the soldiers, among the Indians, that they were not allowed to cross river Indus. They were not allowed to cross river Indus, which was against their religion. But whenever wars were fought outside India, the Indian soldiers had to cross river Indus and go to other part and fight wars for the Britishers, which were completely against their religion. But nothing could be done for that, because they had passed one act which was known as General Service Enlistment Act, which was passed in the year 1856. In the year 1856, General Service Enlistment Act was passed. Okay, so according to this act, according to the General Service Enlistment Act, the Indian soldiers could be sent, okay, overseas for military services, and abolished extra allowances for the service overseas. When you are asked to go apart from go far into a different land or far away, they are to be given bhatta. Allowances are to be given to them. That was also denied to them. Okay, so according to the religion, they were not allowed to cross, but as per the new act, they were forced to. That means once you are recruited in the army, you could be sent anywhere. Once you are recruited in the army, you could be sent anywhere to serve the British government. Okay, so that was according to the General Service Enlistment Act of 1856. And mostly the Brahmin soldiers in the British army, they reacted to this, because as I told you, they had a belief that crossing sea would lead to the loss of caste. Crossing sea would lead to a loss of caste. Okay, and then next one is racial discrimination. Racial discrimination. So definitely this we have already discussed. Racial discrimination we saw in the case of low salaries. They were given very low salaries. There is a poor prospect of promotion. Why? Because we are Indians, though we are capable like the Europeans or the British soldiers, but we were discriminated. Even the generals, they use slang languages for the Indians. Sometimes they kick at the back of their Indian soldiers. So this way they discriminated the Indian soldiers. They were never praised for their hard work. They never praised the Indian soldiers for their hard work. At least if they praise, they will be morally boosted. But that was also not sin. Okay, so a lot of racial discrimination was seen in the Indian army. The quality of food which was served to them was also not up to the mark. Now, next one is annexation of Awadh. So let me tell you annexation of Awadh. Why? When we discussed the political causes, there also I mentioned that this can be discussed in the military cause also, because most of the soldiers in the British army, they were from Awadh. It was estimated that 75,000 soldiers, they belong to Awadh. they belonged to Awadh. They were very, very loyal to them. But when Awadh was annexed, so these people were very much hurt. We are working for them, we are loyal to them, but what about our people? What about our family who are now suffering due to their acts? Okay, so this had hurt the sentiments of the people. So mostly, the main occupation of the people of Awadh, okay, there was agriculture, okay, but at least one member from Awadh, they joined the army. Though the main occupation of the people of Awadh was agriculture, but at least one member from every family that was in the army. One member of the family was in the army. So definitely they had a very much attachment with their own homeland, their place, as well as loyalty towards the British government. But in spite of this loyalty, who had suffered? The people, the family members, they had suffered. Okay, and when Awadh was annexed, when Nawab Wajid Ali Shah was dethroned, he was removed, then definitely it also hurt the sentiments of the people. Okay, and sepoys, you know that they were sepoys, they were agriculturalists, they were sepoys. Okay, but basically they were peasants in uniform, and so when their foreign allowances were cancelled, that also hurt them. They resented to this act of the cancellation of their bhatta, that is allowances also. So Awadh was annexed. It also affected the Indian soldiers who were in the British army, because they are working day and night, they are helping them, they are serving the British government, but what they did with the people of Awadh had hurted them very much. Now next one, the Afghan war. What is in the Afghan war? So again the same thing. When because apart from India, the other side crossing rivers in Afghanistan and all was there. So war was fought in Afghanistan. Okay, Afghan war. So what we saw, Hindus believed that the same thing. They believe that crossing rivers in they are going to lose their caste. They are going to lose their caste. But in spite, because they could not, if they go far away from their mainland, they will not get chance to bath daily, and they have to wear the same uniform for many days. So that definitely was going to make them very, very unclean, and they have to wear the jackets made of sip and all. Okay, so that they resented to it, but they could not do much. Okay, Afghanistan is a region where geographically it is a highland, and the weather is different from the mainland of India. So definitely they have to wear jackets made of sip and all. So definitely they don't like all this. So on the other hand, the Muslims on the other hand, Muslim soldiers were also there. So Muslims on the other hand, they were very much unhappy because they will be fighting against the Muslims. Afghanistani people are also Muslim, so they will also be fighting against their own brothers of the same faith. So that also was very, very resentful by the Indian Muslim soldiers. So all this became very much important cause. And in the Afghan war, when British lost it, Afghan war was lost by the Britishers. So the invincibility of the British government, or invincibility of Britain, the myth of invincibility was broken down. They had a belief that the Europeans could not be defeated. So when they were defeated in the Afghan war, the belief, a myth of invincibility was completely broken down, and that also brought encouragement among the Indian people that yes, if we try, we can also defeat them. If we try unitedly, we can also bring some changes in our country, in our life. They thought it. So that was all about the Afghan war. And one more point is there which I did not discuss earlier. That is numerical strength of the sepoys. So let me tell you that in 1857, there were 2 lakhs Indian soldiers. 2 lakhs Indian soldiers. On the other side, 40,000 British soldiers were there. So that also gave much courage among the Indian soldiers that we are large in number. So the frustrations and discontentment which are piling up in their minds, okay, definitely they got advantage that we are large in number. So if we turn if we turn against them, we can also become successful. So 2 lakhs Indian soldiers, 40,000 British soldiers. So this numerical strength installed among the sepoys the confidence, the courage to fight against the British masters. So this gave them confidence and courage to fight against the British masters. Okay. Now this is all about the military causes. So hope you understood it. So once again, low salaries, they are paid very low. Poor prospect of promotion, they could hardly reach up the post of Subedar. Religious sentiment, they were asked to cut their beards, okay, and they were even asked to go far away from distant land. They were asked to go to distant land. According to the new act, General Service Enlistment Act, they could be sent to any part of the world. Racially, they were very much discriminated. They used slang languages, the poor quality of food. Okay, the Indians were treated in a very low grade. Annexation of Awadh, when Awadh was annexed, the last number of soldiers they were from Awadh, they were hurt very much. Okay, and Afghan war. In the Afghan war also, that brought confidence among the Indian people that they can also be defeated, because there was a myth that Europeans could not be defeated. So now this myth was also broken down. Okay, and the last one is, let me tell you, that is immediate cause. So lot of causes, political causes, economic causes, social and religious causes, okay, economic causes, okay. So apart from that, what was the most important cause which triggered the revolt of 1857? And that was the introduction of Enfield rifle. Okay. Before the introduction of Enfield rifle, okay, Enfield cartridge, they used to use brown bees guns. Let me tell you what was that. Brown bees gun. Okay, this is the term, brown base guns, and it was made of iron, and it was replaced by Enfield cartridge. Okay, so you might have heard, you were taught in the earlier classes also, that the British introduced Enfield rifle, replacing the brown base gun, and the cartridge which was to be loaded in the Enfield rifle was covered with a wrapper, and the wrapper consisted of a fat of a cow and a pig. It was a rumor. It has been everywhere, wherever I went through it, it has been mentioned that it was a rumor that the cartridge cover was made of wrapper was made of a fat of a cow and a pig. So definitely the Hindus, cow is holy for them, so they will not use it. And for Muslims, pig is unclean for them, so definitely they will also not use it. So they decided to refuse it. So Enfield rifle, when it was introduced in the British Army, the Indian soldiers refused to use it. There was a rumor among them that the cartridge cover was made of a fat of a cow and a pig. So definitely the Hindus will also not use it because cow is holy for them, and the Muslims will not use it because using it is a taboo for them. So definitely when they refused, they started a revolt. When they refused to do so, many of the soldiers were imprisoned, and the first person to refuse this was Mangal Pandey. And with that, the revolt started, and in different parts of the country it spread like a wildfire, and the revolt started. And this topic we'll discuss in the next class. And in the next class, we'll discuss about the results of the revolt of 1857 mainly, But before that, I'll also continue with the events in short. What happened, where it happened, who led the revolt in different places, and mostly our main motive would be to discuss the results of the revolt of 1857 and what type of changes it brought after the revolt of 1857. So once again, let me remind you, those who did not watch the previous video, the link is given in the description. You can watch it and continue with today's video. Okay, so whenever you get time, whenever as many times you want, you can watch it, and please watch it so that you can understand the chapter well. And those who still have problem in understanding, you can please ask me any queries, which will be welcomed by you. Okay, so for this much for today. We'll meet again in the next class. So till then, please take care of yourself.